Hi everybody, Carmen here with Quality Sewing, and for today's How Do I, I'm going to take you through how to make a rope bowl. And today, to make it a little bit more fun, this technique for rope bowls, we're also saying, you could even turn it into a kitty cat bed. So that's the fun thing about rope bowls. This technique that we're going to go through today, it could be a cat bed, right? Like this is a nice finished one that would be a great size for a cat bed. Or, these rope bowls, you can make them in all different sizes. So they can be wide and flat like this one. They could be smaller and narrower. For like example, like you could make one to be for a plant, as a plant holder, which would be sort of fun. You can do all sorts of different sizes of these different rope bowls. And this technique is something that applies to all of them, right? And so like here, I also threw in some scraps, right? I can imagine using these rope bowls all over your sewing room to help hold your supplies as well, right? Because I don't know about you, but I have a ton of different supplies in all different shapes and sizes, and these rope bowls are very fun. They can totally be a stash buster. So I'm gonna take you through how to get them started, how to work through them in the middle, and then how to finish them up. So I'm gonna set this over here. And you can see here's like a little tiny baby one, right? This could be like a little jewelry holder or something. The other thing I was thinking about as I was playing with this is you could make a really fun set of rope coasters, right? Like coasters would be really fun for somebody. Lots of different fun ways to do this. So we'll just sort of get started. So the very first thing is you need to have some rope. So you can buy rope in a lot of different places. This is the Gypsy Quilter rope. This is what we have on our website. It's 100% cotton, and it works really nicely. And it's, not too thick, not too small. It's sort of nice. You can also buy this at other craft stores. I think there's places where you can buy it by the yard. But this is what we have on our website because we like the Gypsy Quilter products. And it's called clothesline. So that's really what you're going to be searching for if you're looking for it is, hey, do you have some of the craft clothesline? As opposed to, there we go, stretch resistant, which is also very nice. And it also has the size of it. So there's going to be like, this is 3/16, but you could get 1/4 of an inch. There are just some different sizes out there of the rope, depending on what you want to do. Obviously, you want it to be a nice manageable size that works well with your sewing machine. So you don't want it super giant, right? So this product works really well. So you're going to want some rope. That's first, right? The next thing is you're probably going to want some scraps because here you can see on this, we have some where it's just white. And the white part here is just, you can have some color on top of it because we've used, instead of just using cream thread, we've actually used pink thread here. So it sort of gives it some fun pink and white. But then where we have the solid colors, this is actually fabric that has been wrapped around the rope. And this is all just little strips that have been cut from a stash. And if you're like most of us, you probably have, and we can turn this around a little bit. Maybe I'll take this out so you can see the inside of the bowl here because it's sort of really fun. Like, look how cool that is. And if you're looking for inspiration, one of the things I also looked up is I just sort of Googled rope bowls and images, and there's tons of different styles out there, right? Some people will do like all white and then just have a couple bits of color, or maybe the whole bottom is white and then the whole top has color on it. So there's lots of fun different things you can do. But the strips here, you can see these are just different little bits of scraps, right? That have all been cut into like 1.5-inch strips. And depending on how wide your rope will sort of depend on how wide you want to make this, but it's not a perfect thing. It wasn't like we probably even used a ruler, right? We're just sort of like throwing some strips and just cutting them so that way they're a nice manageable size, because the way that we're going to get this on the rope is you're literally just going to like wrap it around like this and then sew it. And I'll show you this in a minute, but it makes it really, when you're just wrapping it around, so it doesn't have to be the width of your strips doesn't have to be a perfect thing. And that's part of why it's great for using up your bits in your stash, right? Because how many times are you making a quilt or something and you're just like, I've got all these little bits, I don't want to throw them away, so you sort of throw them in like a tub, right? And you have like a tub of scraps that you're hoping at some point you're going to use. And this would be a great time to do that. You can go through and like pick them by colors. So you can see the ones that I have in this basket all sort of have a color theme. And that way they can sort of work nicely together. Okay, so let's get the sewing machine set up so it is ready, because that is part of sewing on rope, is you do want to make sure the sewing machine is ready for you. This can be done on most any home sewing machine. You do just want to make sure that you have some stuff set up correctly. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use a larger size needle. I have a 100/16 size denim needle. So a denim needle is a little bit sharper. I love denim needles. Oftentimes like a 90/14 denim needle is sort of like my go-to size. So the thing about needles that's sort of, just to sort of explain the sizing, as the numbers get bigger, the needle gets bigger. So not only does the needle itself get bigger, but that eye of the needle where the thread goes also gets bigger. And I mention this because in this case, we're just going to use normal weight thread, but sometimes when you're using a heavier weight thread, that also means you need to use a bigger needle so that way the thread can get through the eye, if that makes sense. And I often get a lot of questions from people about just needles in general, like, why are there so many of them? When should I change them? All of that good stuff. You generally want to change your needles every 8 hours of sewing. And then I like to have an arsenal of needles, right? I have one of those Class A tins that has like 10 different assorted needles in it. And that is amazing because then it's not 10 different needles, it's actually 10 different needle packs. So that way I have all of the different sizes and styles because there is a different type of needle. There's universal, there's denim, there's top stitch, there's stretch, there's wing needles, there's so many different types of needles. But for today, we're going to use a denim 116. And this is the sort of project I would highly recommend putting a new needle in when you get started, if that makes sense. Okay, and then the other thing I've done here is I put on the open toe foot, okay? And I love the open toe foot. This is a clear plastic open toe foot, and almost every brand for every machine makes some different versions of open toe feet. Some are clear plastic and some are metal. So, you can just depends on your brand of machine, but I love an open toe foot. I use it all the time, right? So for today, I'm using it because it helps me make sure that as I'm zigzagging, I'm actually catching both sides of the rope. And that's where the open toe foot is amazing. It's great for applique. It's really great for any time where you want to be able to see exactly where that needle is going. And it's not, your vision isn't inhibited by the little solid piece that's usually in the front of our foot. So I use the open toe foot all the time. Okay, so then the other thing I have is I do have some of these little wonder clips. There's a couple different brands of clips here, but little clips are really nice instead of using pins, and you'll see in a little bit here a couple of places where I use them. And then I also am going to get my sewing machine set up on a zigzag stitch. So I just picked a standard zigzag, and you're going to want to pick a slightly wider zigzag. I think, I've played with it at some different widths, and I think that I'm going to leave it at about 5 millimeters so it's not too wide. Initially I played with it at like 3 millimeters and it felt a little bit narrow to me. So you could play with which width. This is one of those sort of fun sewing projects where you can sort of do what you want, right? So if you want to see more stitching and have it be bigger, go for it. If you want it to be finer because you want it to just have a finer look, go for that as well. And some of this is also going to depend on how big your rope is, right? If you have smaller rope, then it's going to be a smaller stitch width will probably be fine. But it obviously can't be too narrow because when we get going here in a minute, you're going to see that that zigzag is going from each side of the rope. So if we look here at this rope here, the zigzag, actually let's look at this purple one so you can see it better because it's color contrasted. You can see here that on this one that it is going, between, that's how it's holding all of those layers together. And so you don't want it to be too narrow because otherwise it won't actually grab it, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's get started with how do we get started. So I have my rope here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off the edge so that way it's nice and it hasn't frayed yet because these are sprays. And I'm going to make I'm just going to get my little circle started, okay? So I'm just going to flip this around, and I'm just going to do this with my fingers sort of as tight as I can. And if you want, you could use something to hold it, but I find that I can just sort of get it started. All I'm doing here is just wrapping around, so I have like maybe about 6 total, so 3 and 3 on each side. So I just have a little thing to hold it here, okay? So then I'm just going to put this under my foot, and I'm actually just going to do a zigzag straight down through the middle of one side and then through the middle of the other side. So I'm just making an X with my zigzag. I think I just said straight stitch, but I meant zigzag, everybody. We're just doing a zigzag. And then I'm just going to get it started here. And we're going to go straight through the middle of it, down to here. And then I have preset my machine, so it is set up to automatically tie up at the beginning of my stitch and then tie up at the end, cut my threads, and raise my presser foot. So that way I can be a little bit more hands-free, which is fun. And then I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side, where I'm just going to make the rest of that X. And I'm just going to hold this down here and bring it all the way down and then lock my stitch when it gets to the end. Because now I've sort of anchored that. Now, when you get this done here, if you feel like, oh, it still feels a little bit loose, I can pull it down here so you can see it. If it still feels a little bit loose, you can by all means, now that you have a nice flat surface that's not moving, you could just start sort of zigzagging all the way around it, if that makes sense. So we could just say, you know what, I'm going to add some more stitching to get started here if I feel like I want that, and zigzag a little bit more if you feel like it's not quite tight enough. If you feel like it's good to go, then what we're going to do is we're just going to start going around. So I'm going to pick my spot here, and what I've done is hopefully you can, as I hit something on my machine, I love that the machine makes noise when I accidentally tap a button. The open toe foot has a little red dot there, and you probably can't quite see it on the screen, but I'm trying to keep that lined up between the two center pieces, the two pieces like this of the rope. So that way I can really make sure that my zigzag is going on both sides. And then I just get started here. I'm going to move ahead and keep my hand out of your way. Let's see, how's that? Yes, you can see that pretty well. And it's just zigzagging those two pieces of rope together. And we're just going to just keep doing this. What we're doing is building the base of our bowl here. And so we're just going to keep sort of going around here. And of course, at any time now, we could add color. So we could have added color from the very beginning if we wanted our bowl to have color on it. But you can see we're just sort of going around in a nice circle. This machine has a start-stop button, which is sort of great because I don't have to use my foot control. It is just going for me, and I'm just able to keep driving it. But let's say we wanted to add, so this is the other tip here, is I have my machine set to needle down. So my machine's stopping in the needle down position, which makes it really easy for me to stop here and then say, okay, you know what, I do think I want to add a little, I want to start adding some fabric color. So then to do that, I would just grab, sorry that my arm got in the screen there, I would grab one of my strips here, and then I am going to just wrap it around the fabric. So I'm just going to sort of wrap it here and just, you know, just sort of wrap it. This doesn't have to be super particular. You just want to make sure that all of the white is covered. And so we're just going to wrap it like that. Now, if you wanted to pre-do a whole bunch of it, you could. But what I found works pretty well is to just sort of start sewing again. And as you're sewing here, the part with the color is going to come up, and you're just going to start stitching that and stitching that, and then you'll pause it and you'll wrap a little bit more, and then you'll just sort of keep going. You will just keep stitching. And then as you're stitching, so you're just stitching in that same exact manner that we were stitching it before we wrapped it. But we'll just keep adding that fabric. And then you can see on this bowl here, you can see how now once you get it in both of the sides there, how it how it just sort of looks flat and sort of gets all just put right in there, right? So you're just gonna keep going around to make whatever size. So the process of this is first you make your base. So if you were gonna make, if you were gonna make a really wide one, like this guy here, you can see that this has a lot more. This is a much bigger base than what we started with. So you would just keep making the base until you get to whatever you think the right size is, if that makes sense. So if you want a narrower, smaller bowl, then you're going to make your base smaller, right? It wouldn't have as many rows. So you're just going to, this is one of those fun things where, like, yes, you can do some measurements if you want, but if you don't want to do any measurements, you can just sort of feel it out and make it whatever size you think is good. So now we're going to switch over here to one that we already have partially done. So I can show you how you start curving it to make it go up the sides. So I am just going to trim this guy here and cut my threads. I love that this machine has thread cutters. Pull this little guy off. And then because this project, what we did is we actually have thread, we have the purple thread on here, which really gives it sort of a fun feeling instead of doing where the one we've been working on, or like this one here, I used the white thread. And if you can maybe see those, we'll have them zoom in here. So you can sort of see the difference of style, right? It's two different stylistic choices. Here, I've used cream thread to match the rope. Over here, we've used purple thread to sort of match the theme of the fabric. And both are super fun. And this one here, the big one, also has pink thread. So you can sort of see that stylistically, you can pick, you know, whatever you want to do, which is awesome. Okay, so what we are going to do fast, though, is we're going to change this machine to purple thread, because that way the project here will be able to get finished and look pretty just as it should. So we're going to put this thread on here. I always recommend using a spool cap, because then you make sure that your thread doesn't get caught on anything. And then this machine does have like an amazing needle threader. Voila, just like that, threaded. I love it so much. And then we'll put in our bobbin. And we will be ready here to get going. We're going to just do that one more time. Okay. Great. Okay, so that is ready to go. And we are going to, I'm going to get myself a little cleaned up here. So I've got those little bits of thread everywhere. So you can see here I've got the rope, our whole big chunk of rope. I have the bowl, not the bowl. This could be a placemat. Oh, that would be fun. You can make a whole bunch of really fun placemats. So I have this here. You can see that here is sort of how I was saying earlier, like if you wanted to pre-wrap a little more ahead of time, you could use your little clips and you could clip it down and you could clip it in sections, so that way you don't have to wrap it as much and it sort of holds it a little bit tighter. So that would be another option for you. It really just depends on you and what you want to do. So we're just going to get this guy lined up here. I'm going to go back a little bit just to make sure that I'm lined up to sort of where we were. I'm going to lower my presser foot. And then I am going to start sewing here. And I'm going to take out that guy here. And I'm actually going to increase my stitch length a little bit to match a little bit more about how we did it on this one. This stitch length, we had it a little bit wider than I was using on the last one. And then we're just going to keep going around here. Pull out my little clip. There's my hand. Hopefully my hand's not been totally in the way. Oh, nice. You can see it there. Okay, and then now I'm going to get that little piece just anchored a little bit. I'm going to stop it here. And now if we want this to start going up, what we're going to do is we're going to actually take this whole bowl shape basically, and we're going to hold it up. So I know it's hard for you to see, but we're going to hold it up like this, and we're just going to start stitching it where we're holding it up. And you're just going to hold it up like this. And I'm going to pause it again so I can get my fabric wrapped here. Around. And we'll just have it go to there, and I'll trim this off. Good. Just like a normal sewing room, everybody. I just threw something on the ground. Okay, we're going to start it again. And hopefully, and then we're just going to keep holding it up like this as we are zigzagging it. And as we continue to do that, it will start making that shape. And so as you're holding it up like this, it will start turning into this shape, basically, as you go around. Because as you can see here, if we had this one here, you can sort of see how you're sewing it like this, where it is just going around and up if it's big. Now, if it's a really small bowl, you actually would flip it inside out. I'm going to cut this off here. If it was something smaller where, because it was little and the shape of your machine, you wouldn't be able, like if it was a much smaller one, like imagine if this was here, and because of the shape of the machine, it really wouldn't be able to get around there. But if you take off your free arm and you flip your bowl inside out, you can actually, when they're narrow, stitch them this way as well. And then it would just go up your bowl, or, you know, your vase or something if you're making something narrow. Does that sort of make sense, hopefully? So there's lots of different. And then for the height of this, now we could have made this a lot taller, right? All we would have to do is just keep adding rope and upon rope, upon rope, upon rope. Now, worst case, if for some reason you were to run out of rope, or maybe you got this far and you're like, I want to add on more, all you would have to do is just line up your rope and then just attach it in there and just keep going, right? So it's sort of fun. You can really sort of choose how you want to do this. But I thought for the last thing we would show is how to finish it. So there's a couple of different ways. You get to the end here, right, and you have this string. Now, if this was actually a cat, you know, if we're really making a cat bed, one of the things I was brainstorming with my team yesterday was it could be sort of fun to turn this actually into a cat toy, right? And have something that the cat could play with. But one of the ways that I think is really nice to finish these is to make like almost like a little handle. If you can see it there, I'll put it down here maybe. How this one has been made, where we've made sort of like a little handle. And that can be a really nice way to finish it. So I am going to show you how I did that. And I'm actually, you know what? I should probably flip, after all of that, I'm going to flip my thread back to the cream, because I want this to look really nice since it's the last part. And there was pink thread on that one. So let's just flip this back to the cream, because I think that'll work great because we're going to be stitching mostly on the rope. And I can show you how that part works. This is where it's so great that the machine is so easy to thread, so you can change your colors. That would also be something that could be fun to do, is change the colors throughout it and make like a rainbow bowl. There's really no limit to the fun things you can do with these bowls. Okay, there we go. We have that. I'm gonna put my free arm back on because I want that. My little accessory tray. Okay, so here, what you're gonna do is you are going to figure out how big you want that loop to be, right? So if we want the loop to be that big, let's say, right? You just have to pick how you want it to be bigger, if you want it to be smaller. You're gonna pick the size of loop that you want. I'm thinking about there, so then I'm just going to cut at a diagonal here off my rope, because I want to have a nice clean piece, because you can see the difference between like a frayed edge that was on there and then the clean trim. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to nestle those together just like that. And then I'm going to put this all in my machine here. And this is going to be hard. I know you probably can't quite see it, but I'll show you when I get done. And lower my presser foot. And I'm going to just start zigzagging that together. And then since this is actually for a handle part, right? I'm going to go reinforce it, and I'm going to do it a couple of times because there's going to be a little bit more strain on this. And so I don't want to just have one stitch. I'm going to have some multiple stitches to really make sure that it's secured and it's not going anywhere. And let's see here. I love how it cuts my threads for me, raises my presser foot, all that business. And then there you go. You can see now we have, oops, sorry. Get it in the right spot. You can see now you have this little loop, and you could have attached the loop to be down here further. You know, you can play with how you do it. And then of course, the last thing you're going to do on any project, I feel like this is true of any sewing project. Sorry, I've got threads everywhere, is you're going to go through and you're just going to trim off your little bits of loose threads and little bits of loose, because you're going to have little bits of loose fabric sort of pieces, and you're just going to sort of trim them off and just sort of make it all finished. But then you are good to go. You have this great cat bed that has been all made, and it's ready for your kitty cat. You can add a little blanket in there, maybe some toys. I could also see this would be a fun thing to even just keep all of your pets' toys in. I have a dog, and she has a million little stuffies that she just loves and carries them around the house all the time. And so we keep a basket for her just on the floor, so that way she can just grab them whenever she wants them. But this is really cute and a great scrap buster. So hopefully I am not frozen. Okay, so that is what I have for you today. Every week we go live at 10 a.m. Pacific time for a different How Do I. And so if you have any questions, if you're not watching this live, by all means, if you post to our YouTube page or our Facebook page, we will answer any questions you have. Thanks so much. And also, we are always looking for new ideas. So if you have something you really want to learn on our channel, just post it in a comment and you'll probably see it sometime in the future. And of course, all of the products I talked about are available at qualitysewing.com or any one of our Washington State locations. Thank you and happy sewing. I'm just going to keep smiling. I believe we're having a couple of technical difficulties with our program. But like I said a few minutes ago, we are always looking for new project ideas. And we love different projects that show different techniques on sewing techniques, quilting techniques, embroidery techniques, all of those things. Oh, good. I think we're good. I think we can wrap it up now. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much. Technical difficulties are real when you go live. It's how you know we're really live. Have a great day.